This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
only one way to be independent. There's only one way to be free. It's not something that someone gives to you. It's something that you take. Nobody can give you independence. Nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. If you can't take it, you don't deserve it. Nobody can give it to you. I'm for anybody who's for freedom. I'm for anybody who's for justice. I'm for anybody who's for equality. I'm not for anybody who tells me to sit around and wait for mine.
Brother Vincent Squire.
Hey, good morning, Brother Dawson. How
Good
you
morning,
doing?
man. Well, listen, before we get started, let's do the housekeeping. Introduce yourself to people. Most of them know who I am. I'm going to introduce myself for any new folks because we do have some new folks who are tuning in, and I'm going to give them a shout out in a minute. But before I do, I want you to introduce yourself to everybody.
Okay. Well, look, first, I want to thank you for having me on my show. It's always an enlightening conversation, sometimes very high-spirited, but very much enjoyable. For those who don't know me, I'm Vincent Squire. I am the candidate for the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate in New Jersey. I'll be taking on the incumbent Cory Booker. And I'm looking to a great deal of success in moving New Jersey forward. My platform is relatively simple. We need a senator who can stand up to Donald Trump. With all the things that he's been going on, have you heard Senator Booker say one word except for on a debate stage? And number two, we need to take care of some kitchen table issues. New Jersey is 50th right now in bringing back your federal money back to the state of New Jersey. That's the job of your congressmen and your senators. Now, I can't tell you who to vote for Congress, but I can tell you that if you vote for someone and they're in office and I'm in office, if our New Jersey congressman would put up a bill that would bring back money to help New Jersey's education, to help improve New Jersey's roads, to help alleviate taxes to our seniors, I'm all for taking that to the Senate. So, this November, I think that we need to stand up and be counted. Stand up and make our voices heard. Stand up and let's vote for a change this June. Vote Vincent Squire.
All right. So, check it out, man. And I want to... So I'm Eric Dawson. This is the Eric Dawson Radio Show. I want to welcome our Montclair family who is coming on board, and I'm excited about it. I met this group of folks called the Montclair Underground, and I got an understanding yesterday of exactly why the page was created and what it is that they're doing. It was very interesting. It was like an hour-plus conversation. So Montclair Underground, glad to have you guys aboard. I hope you participate in our conversations. We're live every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Please hit the share button, visit our YouTube channel, and hit the subscribe button, and you'll be notified. But Vincent, what I found out, we always talk about an uprising in the servants' quarters and the need to communicate and to reach out beyond our comfort zone and our own boundaries to call in reinforcements in this fight that we're having for our very freedom, right? And like Malcolm said in the clip that I played, nobody's going to give it to you. You have to fight for it. And you have to be with anybody who's willing to fight for it and be against anybody who tells you to just sit back and wait. And so we're not going to wait anymore. We're fighting, and we are bringing in reinforcements. And so to align with the Montclair Underground folks, I think is an exciting thing. But this group of people, my understanding was that they were a part of another group with a social media presence, and then they got. Well, we always talk about the 4 Ds, right? Dismissal, demonizing, discrediting, and then ultimately trying to destroy. So when you're doing constructive stuff, so when you're in a space, and I know my phone's going to ring and it's going to be Farrakhan Swab calling. But when you're working in a construct with other people who really don't have your best interests at heart, and I'm specifically talking about white folk, right, or non-black folk, and then you start specifically talking about black issues, they then want to monitor how you talk about your issues. They want to tell you, well, the way you said that makes me feel uncomfortable, so you need to rephrase that. Or the fact that you're talking too much about that is of concern to us, so you need to temper the amount of time you spend talking about those issues. But those are our only issues. And so my understanding is that there were folks who are currently part of the Montclair Underground who were in these other groups, right? Because Montclair is supposed to be this very multicultural, diverse, ethnically diverse community. And so when it off-ramped onto these social media platforms, and folks were saying, well, hey, I want you to know me, but I want you to know me as Eric Dawson, an American descendant of slavery. I want you to know me as Eric Dawson, a foundational black American. I don't want you to know me as Eric Dawson, a watered down black person, right, who is too afraid to talk about my personal experiences and how they're impacting me and my family. And so those folks in that other thread were saying, hey, listen, we don't want to have those kind of conversations, or we want to challenge your experience. Right. And what I was told yesterday by some of the folks, they said, look, our experience is not up for debate. It's not up for debate that in 1619, 20 freed Africans were brought and enslaved in Virginia. It's not up for debate that there are racist policies that have catapulted white folks and have suppressed black folks. These things are no longer up for debate. And so we're not going to waste time debating them. We want to talk about solutions to them. We're not debating whether it happened. We're not debating whether slavery happened. Like, so you got a guy like Mitch McConnell who wants to debate the validity of our argument about slavery and the need for reparations. That's not for debate. Like the idea of kicking the can down the road. This is a segue to something that Farrakhan's going to want to talk about too. Tom Steyer, who is saying, hey, look, I'm the only candidate on this stage that has now transcended the debate and am saying, look, we need to provide reparations in the debate. There is no more debate. So these people in the Montclair Underground are saying, look, we're moving forward now. We're having a conversation about what to do. Not what happened. We know what happened. And so here is part and parcel. And I forgot the town. I posted on my page where they're making part of the curriculum now, right? Some truths about what transpired, and it's still transpiring. And this is why I'm saying we have to end the miseducation in these public schools that are being funded by our taxpayer dollars, and we have to say, look, we're no longer going to send our kids to these schools because we know what's happening. We're producing people who want to continue to have a debate. We don't want to debate anymore. We're going to acknowledge that it happened and then repair it. So to be aligned with these folks, man, is a breath of fresh air. So Montclair Underground, I look forward to doing great things with you. I was talking to some other people in that group, and they were asking me about my thoughts about Renee Baskerville, who's a councilwoman right now, and she's running for mayor. And I expressed my concerns about her. And I owe the councilwoman a phone call. She did reach out to me after I made my initial comments about my concern about her. But here's where we have to be, right? My grandmother always said to me, she said two things are guiding principles for me right now. Birds of a feather flock together, that's one. Two, lie down with dogs. You get up with what, Vincent? Fleas.
Fleas.
You get up with fleas. So,
that's right.
So when I see a picture of Renee Baskerville with slave catchers and with Negro whisperers, I got to ask what's going on. You understand what I'm saying? I gotta say, how do you look so comfortable taking pictures and comfortable enough to post them? See, if we've identified them as dangers in our community, like if there was somebody who was on a wanted poster, Vincent, who was on the FBI's top 10, right? I wouldn't take a selfie with them and post it on my page. If I knew, for instance, that there was a known pedophile in our community, I wouldn't necessarily be taking pictures with them and posting them on my page with me. I wouldn't do that, right? Because to do that suggests to some people that somehow I condone that and somehow I'm in partnership with it. And so when you look and say you got these Negro whisperers and slave catchers, and how do we know we have them? Just look around your community. You have seen no fundamental or transformative change. And we talked about that too. We talked about how Dr. King in 52 was talking about these issues that have gotten worse for us. And with a 900% increase in black elected officials, how do we do worse off 50 years later than we were doing then? It's because these people, though they say they're doing something, you know, my grandmother, another thing she said, I can't hear what you're saying for what you're doing. Meaning that your actions speak louder than the words that are coming out of your mouth. She said, you're just flapping your gums. See, so I can't hear you. I can't hear what you're saying for the failures that you're producing for the last 55, 60 years. So now when I see a politician taking pictures with these failures, I'm saying, do you condone failure? Do you promote failure? Do you support failure? Are you aligned with failure? So those are my questions for Renee Baskerville. Like, I need you pointing it out. I don't need you caping for it and taking pictures with them. I need you saying to us, hey, that's a Negro whisperer. See, that's leadership. Hey, that's a slave catcher over there. Beware. But when you confuse us, right, intentionally sometimes, by taking pictures with them, showing some either overt or tacit support for them, then I'm concerned. I'm concerned. So I'd like to talk to her and find out why she took the pictures with them. I want to know whether or not she's writing checks to a party, right, that is promoting failure, right? I want to know that. So that's what I said to that person. I think we have a call. Caller, go.
Hey, peace, brothers. How y'all doing?
I got my armor on, Farrakhan.
How's it going? It's going great, man. It's going great. First and foremost, Eric, I want to say thanks for throwing out that call. That just let me know to call up, because like we're gonna have that conversation. I definitely want to say I agree with you with everything you just said, but I found it interesting talking about first and foremost, if we want to say we support ADOS as we do on this show, we have to say it's time to take a look at the Tom Squire. Steyer, because he is. I'm Squire. Thank you. Well, right. My brain got a little mixed up right there. That's why.
That's all right.
He is actually speaking to the issues in which the ADOS is built around,
right,
which is reparation.
Right.
He said something last night on the stage that goes to exactly to what you said when you were speaking about the people from the Montclair Underground who separated themselves from people who were trying to monitor how you speak. He said in reference to reparations, it wasn't for him to, I don't want to say determine it. He said that he would have to step to this. He wants to see it done because he knows it needs to be done, and then to put the people in there that will do it,
right,
and not, and I respect that. That means to say it's not necessarily my lane, right? I don't belong in that conversation per se, right? But it has to happen, and it has to be done. So, again, how do I support a guy like a Bernie Sanders who says, no, I want to blow up the system, but I don't want to do anything specifically for you when I blow up the system.
Right.
And then I have another guy who says, I want to correct the system, and in correcting the system, there are things that have to be done specifically for you.
Right.
So I'm going with the guy that's saying specifically for me.
Right. So
here's the biggest thing that we run into with actual change in the system. In the 1790s, where we had roughly a 30% descendant of slaves in Congress, what they did was called tabled issue. It's like what Eric talked about. They never got to the heart of the issue. They just had debates about the issue.
Right.
That is the correct.
Let him finish.
Correct.
Let him finish.
Correct. That's the slippery slope that we continue to go into.
Exactly.
Now,
and you're just right.
what we need to do is this. We done went through hundreds of years of the issue. We know the issue. We don't need to debate the issue. We need to fix it. Now, what I do understand about Bernie is this. He does want to bring on a great deal of social change for America. Whether the fact that his social change has a black agenda is up to us to, one, find out, two, believe, and three, either support or not support.
Right. So here's what I'm going to say very, very quickly.
We already have the answers to that.
So
we already have the answers. His social change does not include that for us.
wait, no, it doesn't. You're
deliberately.
You're 100%.
He's already said it.
You're 100%.
Don't put words in his mouth when he says, I'm not for reparations.
No.
Farrakhan.
Farrakhan. We have to say the honest things that are being said. What he said was, it is a difficult thing to do. That's what he said. Those were his words. They asked him about reparations. He said it's difficult, right? It's difficult. And I agree that it's difficult. And so does Bernie Sanders want to lean into that difficult thing? I had that conversation. I said, look.
But he said he didn't want
allow
to
me
lean
to,
into it.
I'm going to let you talk, and please allow me to finish the thought. So, difficult. When we look at history, we look at how black folks abandoned Malcolm. We look at how black folks abandoned Martin. We look at how black folks abandoned anybody who took up a black cause. Difficult, right? So I'm not saying that it shouldn't be done, but it's difficult. And there are other things that can be worked on as well. Now, Tom Steyer, 100%. Marion Williamson, 200%. But look at what happened with her. We didn't come out and support her. So this is what I'm saying to you. So now when you had a person who was who actually sat down with the folks who put the numbers together in terms of what they think reparations is going to cost, that lady didn't get support. So when we keep saying, oh, we want people to speak to our issues. We want them to speak to our issues. We want them to speak to our issues. And then they get slaughtered speaking to our issues. What do we do?
No, this is what happens, and this is what happened in my campaign. I started speaking to the issues. Then I started getting discredited, demonized, and then they tried to destroy me.
And how many black folks stood up with you? Wait a minute, when you did that, when you spoke to the issues, when you spoke for black folks, when you were black-faced with a black voice, how many black folks stood with you?
Not as many as I thought would.
There we go. So now what I'm saying again is this. It's difficult. It's difficult. We got to acknowledge the fact that we send people out there to fight for us, and then we do what Kevin Jenkins said. We go in the house, we lock our doors and pull our shades down, and we watch them get jumped.
Of course, because it's part of that. One thing what happens is part of that slave mentality. Remember when the buck actually started raising up against the master, and they put that bullwhip to him? Everybody disappeared because nobody wanted part of that bullwhip.
Right, that's what we had. Listen to what you just said, though, Eric. You said when we send people out there to do it for us. The problem is, Bernie Sanders is not going to do it for us. He's already said, he's made that clear.
No, I agree with you. I agree.
Right, so
but we've already, listen, we're going secular now. I agree. I agree with you.
Right?
I agree.
So if you agree with me, then let's take him off the table.
No,
he's not,
but wait a minute.
That's what we can lose.
Listen.
We can lose that piece because that piece ain't going to checkmate for us.
No. Wait a minute.
We can lose that piece.
Wait a minute. Right. So what I'm suggesting to you is this: we can do multiple things, right? So so for me, and I want to talk about this in a little bit because people were asking me, and you called too, Farrakhan, checking on my health. So I want to talk about that, and this is a perfect segue. So for me, healthcare is a major issue. Healthcare is a major issue. So for you guys who tuned into the show yesterday or tuned in looking for the show, I apologize for not being on. I still need an intern. If I got an intern, then we could play the best of while I'm out. But I had to go to the cancer center to get my 3-month checkup, to make sure that that everything is okay. I found out that I'm hypoglycemic. Like, it was crazy. I almost passed out yesterday. I gotten out of the car, and it was it felt like vertigo, right? And I'm like wobbly. But I got to the doctor, so it was timely that I had my appointment yesterday, and I told them, and so they checked. They said you're hypoglycemic, so I got to carry candy bars and and drink orange juice and all that kind of stuff, right? And then I got some other side effects from the chemotherapy and everything else. So they're checking my cancer cell markers, I guess, over the next couple of days through the blood work they did, and they'll get back to me if there's any issue. So I appreciate your continued prayers and concerns. So, but healthcare, Farrakhan, for me, because my grandma Emma had breast cancer, my sister breast cancer, my brother prostate cancer, my dad had cancer, my uncle, who we buried about a month and a half ago, cancer. His daughter died 6 weeks before he did, cancer, right? So healthcare is a major issue for me. So yeah, I got my ADOS hat on, so I'm clear about reparations and all those other things. But healthcare is a major issue for me. So when you say take Bernie Sanders off the board, when I listen to what Tom Steyer is saying about healthcare, that doesn't work for me. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm looking and I'm saying, well, okay, so I don't know where Tom Steyer was in terms of minimum wage. I don't know where Tom Steyer is in terms of...
He wants to double minimum wage.
Right.
I forget all of his healthcare agenda, but now I wanted to say this, and I found this interesting. Of all the people on the stage, right? Did anybody now? As we talk about on the show, we need political and economic power, right?
Absolutely.
For blacks in America to succeed. Did anybody notice that the only two people truly talking about creating policies for black people that will give us any forms of those were the two billionaires on the stage? They're the only two people truly talking about creating policy and law that actually changes that for blacks. And I find that interesting because if we're going to talk about who's going to be better at doing the things that blacks in America need, we're going to look at the businessmen, the successful businessmen,
right,
and how they've done it. And with them knowing that they have manipulated in their business careers the political system for their agenda, we know that they know how to do that.
Right, but here becomes the issue.
I'm not saying vote for Bloomberg, but I'm just saying I found it interesting that out of all the people on the stage,
right,
the billionaires are the only one truly saying laws have to be created for blacks.
Right, but here's what I'm going to say, right? My grandmother, I can't hear what you're saying for what you're doing. So I understand, if we're going to stay with our chess analogy and metaphors, you have to develop the pieces. Those pieces being winning the House of Representatives and winning the Senate, right? Now we flipped the House through progressives, right? We didn't flip the House through a centrist agenda. We flipped the House through a progressive agenda. Now, all those centrists who have been there are part of the problem. If I'm going to use as markers people like Malcolm, people like Martin, people like Marcus Garvey, those folks who came before us that we can look at and say, okay, here's the path they laid for us. The centrist way isn't the way to go. It didn't work. It hasn't worked. It's never worked. It's gotten worse. And so now when I look at these people who are centrists, who could have been a part of a progressive agenda. So when you take a Mike Bloomberg, for instance, right, and you hear a person like Elizabeth Warren say, hey, he ran a Republican against me. You say, well, wait a minute. So now you got the guy on the stage, right, who was brutalizing black people for 12 years, who was a Republican, who was against all this stuff, but now he's for all of this stuff. Right? I can't hear what you're saying for what you're doing. We have to be more sophisticated and we have to pay attention. History will show us. It will guide us. Nothing transformative has occurred under a centrist,
the moderate Democratic Party.
Nothing. And what we need is transformative change. So now, again, I get that Bernie's not the top of your ticket. I get that. But to move, you said move him off the board. But he's the guy who brought in AOC. He's the guy who brought in Ilhan Omar. He's the guy who brought in Rashida Tlaib. He's the guy who's bringing in these progressives who are pushing the agenda to something that works for us. So how do we move that off the board? How do we move it off the board? So yes, I say again, the hard work for reparations is our work. It's not his work. It's not Tom Steyer's work. It's our work. And until we have our black electeds on board, how the hell we gonna get some white people on board? We can't get our black electeds to get off their knees.
You're not going to. It's going to be difficult to get them to the table, and that's the whole thing. In terms of the Democratic Party, what they're doing now, because they're in predominantly black states for the primaries, what they're now doing is talking black issues. Now, all of a sudden, we need, hold on, let me finish. Now, all of a sudden, we need economic equality. Now, all of a sudden, we need some programs and some policies in place to bring about black change. But here's the truth. I disagree with you when you said that the policies have failed. The policies have been working perfectly to fail people of color.
Well, there you go. I'm sorry. I stand. You know what, Vincent? I love it.
That's what I say all the time. Right?
Vincent got me on code.
The system is working perfectly. It is. It's working perfectly against you.
Yeah.
Now, what we need to do is to get rid of those, as I'm going to quote Mr. Dawson, Negro whisperers who are sitting up there coming up and taking photos with you, but when it comes time to actually making policy for change for you, do nothing. It's time that they go. It's time that now we start getting a clean slate. And the people that we elect in, we need to hold them accountable to their word. Don't sit up there and tell me you're going to make changes for the community, and when you get in office, you do nothing but take pictures with the community.
Listen, here's the deal. Here, we got to understand where the fight is. The fight is all of these industries that have capitalized off of us, right? All of these industries. So when you have Mike Bloomberg or you have Tom Steyer, who are not looking at tearing these industries down, they, again, can't hear what you're saying for what you're doing. So all these industries, none of them have shown any benevolence, right? So the hope was that through trickle-down economics, you give them more money, it's going to pass down, right? And then it's going to spread out throughout the community. That never happened, right? They kept the money up top, right? They kept the money up top. Then
hold on. I won't say it didn't work, right? Because for whatever reason, I liked Ronald Reagan as a president, not as a person, but as a president. And I can honestly say that trickle down, it worked. People didn't have financial literacy, so they didn't know what to do with when they got theirs, right, to make it grow. So black folks, they bought cars, they bought all the fancy things, they lived a life, right, in those 80s, right? But what we didn't do was create a future. Right? And so when they realized that we weren't going to create a they just, again, slowly started to change the rules to keep us out the box again. That's a key thing. That's a very key. And I say this being a child in the 80s, and I watched the adults in my family blow millions. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Okay? They blew millions. Right? Yeah, but because they thought it was going to be forever, and they felt good. So I'm not going to argue the trickle-down theory. I'm just saying that when you get yours, you better know what to do with it. It's like the guy that wins the lottery and then goes broke a couple of years later because he didn't know what to do with it when he got it. We're going to have to prepare and learn what to do with it when we get it.
I agree with that point. But also we have to look at another thing in the Reagan administration and the trickle-down theory. The trickle-down theory worked where 18% of the businesses that they gave a great deal of tax abatement support to continue on packed up and moved to Mexico. We're also looking at an administration that was, yes, in improving and increasing the numbers of black middle class, yet his war on the black impoverished incarcerated black people at an alarming rate. Now, if we can take the best of some of it and leave out the worst of it, it's a successful program. Now, what we have to do now is increase what has been successful for people of color. Let's now deregulate the things that are restricting them for economic power. Let's now stop all this bull crap with voter registration, voter ID, voter intimidation to get them to elect the right person so that they can look after their interests. And two, let's once again hold them accountable. We elect people in office and we don't hold them accountable. The only time we see them again is the next campaign. You know what, Vincent? That might need to be the motto of the show. Hold them accountable. Because in the end, that's what matters most. Right? We can elect, we elect black folks all the time. Sometimes I believe that they're going to start out right. But because we don't hold them accountable, they go left. You understand? And so I think that that might be the key thing, right? We have to always hold anybody, black, white, green, or purple, accountable once we've allowed them to be our representative, right? And once we've said, we're giving you our support. Like, is anybody holding the governor of New Jersey accountable when we've given him 94% of our vote, right? Correct. We have to do that hands down all the time. And that's what we take our foot off the pedal, right? That's just how they do it, right? So we have to do that for sure. And without doing that, I don't think anything matters. Like we'll be having this discussion. Our grandchildren will be having this discussion if black folks don't learn to keep people accountable. Well, let's look at this. We're having the same discussion that our grandfathers had. My point. My point. Exactly. And I'll tell you this. I will be the first person to support, give money to anybody running for school board who says that we don't need black history just 1 month out of the year. Because when we say black history alone, we separate from the contributions of the descendants of slaves. And we say that they are separate from American history. I can go with that.
All right.
I don't really follow with that. I don't know, why does it have to be separate, right? Why do we have black history, right? Correct. It's part of the,
I don't want to devolve into that. I mean, that's a whole conversation for a whole show. But all right, thanks for the call, Fred.
Okay, I'm gonna sit back and listen.
All right,
bro. Appreciate your call. Peace.
So, in the debate last night. And somebody just sent this to me. It said, and I don't know if you watched the debate.
Yes.
Right. But Mike Bloomberg had a whole cheering section last night. And for a guy who's not even on the ballot in South Carolina, I want you to understand this. He had a whole cheering section. And, I watched last night, and I know a couple people who've been getting these care packages from the Bloomberg campaign. So you could actually go on their website, and they'll send you, I think you get shirts and buttons, and you can get all kinds of free stuff, right? And black folks are good for wanting free stuff. So they'll take the free stuff, and then they'll promote against their own best interests as a result. In hopes of being able to get paid something. And so last night, even after hearing that I think they said he employed 2,500 people to be on social media to say kind things about him, that there is literally an ad campaign. You know what it reminds me of, Vincent? Have you ever looked at, I haven't been to McDonald's in probably 6 or 7 years, right? But when I used to go, you look at the ad of a Big Mac, right? And the Big Mac looks a certain way, right? You see it just looks perfect, right? It's the lettuce isn't wilted, the cheese is perfectly melted, the sandwich is sitting high, the beef patty looks like it's, just like,
grilled to perfection.
Oh yeah. And then you go and you order it, and then when you open it up, it doesn't look anything like the picture. Nothing. Right? That's Mike Bloomberg, right? So there's this one image of him that they're creating. And we're not sophisticated. Well, maybe we are. Maybe that is the issue that's happening right now. Because the polls are showing that Bernie Sanders is within 4 or 5 points or something like that of Biden in South Carolina. So maybe we have finally opened our eyes. Maybe we have finally become more sophisticated voters, right? To be able to see the charade. But make no mistake about it. Every single thing about what Bloomberg is doing, and this is where I have my biggest issue with black elected officials and black pastors and all of these people who we have exalted to be in positions as so-called gatekeepers of our community and of our well-being, they all see it. They see what's behind the curtain, and they won't tell you. They won't tell you what's really behind the curtain. They know it, but they won't tell it to you. So I'm telling it to you. It's a manufactured product. Right? Everything about it is manufactured. It's kind of like, all right. It's kind of like that chick you see at the club at like 1:30 when the lights are dim, but she's got her makeup on. She got false eyelashes and a wig, right? She's got the whatever the thing is that holds everything together, right? That's right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The whole bit. And then when you get into the light, right? Everything just falls apart. That's what's going to happen, right? All of this is being put together through focus groups and think tanks and ad agencies. They're all literally saying, hey, say this because they're going to want to hear you say that. Hey, do this because they're going to want to hear you. And he's pushing and pulling based on all those things. And we're looking going, oh, he said this. No, he didn't say it. Somebody told him to say it.
Right.
Because he never said it before. Right, so he never apologized for abusing black kids black people before he was told to say it when he was running for president. He never talked about inequality and never talked about racial wealth gap and income disparities. Never talked about any of those things.
No,
never.
No.
So now you hear him talk about it, and it just is what it is. But I just want you all to be aware that his cheering section was a bought and paid for cheering section. And this is where, again, I have to ask questions in terms of our local electeds. How many of them might have been in that cheering section for him? How many of them were bought and paid for, right, or writing checks to the Democratic Party that is supporting this farce?
Oh, he's not alone in that. Let's look at the cheering sections that Donald Trump had bought and paid for during his campaign.
Perfect.
Let's look at again. That person that he paid a great deal of money for, so he could stand there on the podium and go, "Look at him. That's my African American friend."
Wait a minute.
Really?
How do we become offended when Donald Trump did it? But somehow it's palatable when Mike Bloomberg says about Stacey Abrams, "This is my African American woman," right? Or he carts out Congressman Meeks and says, "This is my African American congressman." Or he carts out some more black people and says, "These are my African American mayors," right? Or he says, "I got a prescription for all my African Americans." I mean, what is the difference between what he is doing and what we criticized Donald Trump for doing?
Well, it's the same thing as somebody on the street look at me and go, "That's my Ed." I mean, really, it's the same level of offensiveness. And you know what? I would like to not state the elephant in the room. Yes, I am a descendant. Yes, my color is, of course, that of dark.
I gotta get you a hat. You gotta get a hat.
Any less American?
You gotta get a hat.
Okay. Now, but I'm not a hat guy, but you can hook me up with a couple of shirts. That'd be cool.
Oh yeah. Well, see, look, I gotta let everybody know. I get you a shirt. See, there we go.
There we go. But here's another thing that we're looking at. In terms of politics, what they need now and what they're pushing for is the black vote. That's when we become the most marketable. That's when you hear the most about it, and that's when they start bringing this out of the woodworks. Let's look at the George Walker Bush. When he got elected, he elected just about every black politician to his cabinet, which we ended up with two African-American Secretary of States. So what we need to do is this. First and foremost, let's support them who are supporting us or actually addressing our agenda and moving it forward.
Right.
Second, again, I cannot say this enough. We need to hold them accountable when we elect them. Now, the problem that we have is the biggest lie going on in America is that blacks are 13% of the population, which is not true.
what we find out is that we are 13% of the registered population. We need to start standing up and being accountable. We need to actually start taking the census instead of hiding from them. We need to start registering to vote rather than talking about the politicians. And we need to start voting for people, again, who are looking at furthering our agenda. I cannot say this enough, how much of a disservice we do to the black community by complaining about stuff and doing nothing to change it. Now, that's why we keep having these politicians who get into office and they talk black, but once they get into the office, they turn completely white. That's why we have this problem with politicians who only show up on election day and they want to show up for your chicken and pancake breakfast. That's why we have this problem with our poor school systems in the black communities. That's the problem that we have with small black-owned businesses. We do not have politicians in line for our agenda. They're in line for their constituents' agendas. They need our votes, but they don't need our contributions. They need our votes, but they don't need us to be financially equal to other businesses. They need our votes, yet they don't need us to run our candidates for an election. I am very tired of being represented by a white man who does not know the suffering, does not know the pain, yet can have a level of sympathy for me one time a year.
Yeah. So listen, the battle is on, man. And, you know, I posted this thing on my page, which I think is hilarious, right? And so this is what I say to Farrakhan again. We've had no transformative change whenever it's been about moderation, moderate to centrist thinking. But remember, and I put the posters up, or not posters, the buttons. And it says, remember 50 and 75 years ago when socialism destroyed our democracy and plunged America into irreversible ruin? And these were the things that they were putting up. They were saying, say no to socialism. Tell FDR no Social Security. Right? That's what they said. Right? It says, say no to socialism. Tell LBJ no Medicare. Right? So socialism, back then, the argument, the fight was anti-socialism. It's going to tear apart this country and point us to Venezuela, point us to Denmark, point us to all of these places where socialism has failed. And it says, say no to Social Security, say no to Medicare. I wonder how many of the people who wore these buttons back then benefited from Medicare, benefited from Social Security. You understand what I'm saying?
Get a Social Security check.
Right, get a Social Security check. How many of their relatives? So when we have these conversations, let us be clear. And I said this on the show the day before yesterday. Look, one of the biggest Democrat socialists was a guy that we revere to this day, which is Martin Luther King, who said, look, we got a problem here. You got 40 million people who are poor. How does that happen in a country like this? He said, we have to re-examine our economic theory, our capitalistic economic theory. We have to re-examine it. And so what I'm saying is this: if you believe that, then how do you separate from the fight that's happening right now?
True. See, what we did was this, and it started from back then. When they started to demonize social policies, what they did was included or enlarged capitalism. The problem that everybody has with millennials is this. Millennials are smart enough to see the difference between socialism, capitalism, and communism. What we did in the 50s was confuse socialism with communism, which does not work.
Right.
And also because of capitalism, and what we did was we let capitalists run crazy. What we have now is, because of the capitalistic agenda, we've got a terrible environment. We've got people who do not care about education of our children. We have polluted water. We have unbreathable air, and we have a group of people saying, I don't care, give me your money. When we start bringing in people like Bernie, who says that, you know what, we're in the richest, most powerful nation in the known free world. How come everyone does not have free free health care. We're in the richest, most powerful nation in the world. How come we don't have free education? Where poor countries have it.
Right.
That's the big deal that we're looking at and what we have to address. We have to address the social fabric of America and stop supporting and enlarging a lot of these capitalistic companies that do nothing for society.
Right.
See, that was part of the trickle-down theory, was that we would improve our capitalism, and the trickle-down part is that once they started making money, they would start, spreading the wealth and the benefits for lower and less accountable people. It never truly happened that way.
It didn't. All you have to do, and so I understand Farrakhan and his comment, because listen, I'm not. And see, we're always talking about the team, right? We're not talking individuals. We're not talking anecdotal stuff, right? Because I can talk about the 80s where, wow, back in the 80s, man, I was doing well. Personally, right? At 18, 19 years old, I had a fantastic job. I was able to buy myself a RX-7. You know what I mean? I'm cruising all over the place. I had an apartment at 19 years old. I mean, a beautiful, fully furnished apartment. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I had a job. So there were some people who did well. But it wasn't because of trickle-down. See, it wasn't because of this rugged individualism, and it wasn't because of trickle-down economics, right? There was some people were fortunate to be able to do well. But when we look at the team suffered. And the team is suffering more. I mean, it was trickling up. It wasn't trickling down. It was a slow drip upward, right? And now we see the manifestation of that slow drip. We see what it created over a long period of time, much like the little drip of water that for centuries, right, was running through what is now the Grand Canyon, right? When it was a slow drip, nobody paid any attention to it. But if you let it go long enough, you see what it does in terms of its corrosiveness. So the corrosive nature of our current capitalistic theory has led us to thousands of people on Skid Row in California, thousands of people homeless in Seattle, people homeless and poor and unable to take care of themselves all across this country. That is what this theory has done. It's undeniable. See, that's what I'm saying. I don't even want to have that debate anymore. It is. Just look.
Right.
Right. So if we're spending our time debating whether or not that's a reality, all you got to do is walk out your door. So now once you recognize that it is, much like coronavirus, right? We know that it is, right? What did you say to me before we went on air, Vincent? It's here, right? So now we're going to sit and debate it. Oh, well, is it? Should we? Okay, let's see how long we're going to debate it while people are dying, right? So we got to acknowledge it's here and then solve for it.
Well, let's look at, we spent 10 years debating the AIDS epidemic. And is it an epidemic? and while we're debating on it, thousands of people were dying.
We're dying. We got to look. Paralysis by way of analysis, guys. We got to get to it quickly. Quickly. Is it here? Is this what occurred?
It's here.
And then we move forward. We're still suffering paralysis by way of analysis when it comes to reparations, right? Well, did they really? Is it really? No. See, that is the maximum sophisticated confusion. We know. You know.
Or maximum sophisticated confusion, or baffle them with your BS.
Oh, BS baffling, right?
Yes. And I'm existing, and like you, and a lot of other people, we should be actually tired now of the BS. It's now is not the time for us to engage in debates and endless talking. Now is the time for us to take action.
See,
now it's time for us to get it done.
Debating and endless talking is like holding hands and strolling forever. Right? You know what I mean? Like you just stroll and we'll talk about it. You know what? And then we'll go home, we'll rest, we'll get up and we'll stroll and talk about it again.
We'll talk about it again tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll talk about it and we'll keep talking. And then when we die, our children will talk about it, and then our children's children will talk about it. Stop talking.
Yes, it's like my honey-do list.
Yeah.
It's still on the list.
Yeah. There you go. You know what I'm saying, Vincent? That's perfect. So whenever foundational Black Americans ask about it, they go, "Hey, it's on the list. It's on the list.
It's on the list. It still hasn't gotten done.
It is on the list. It is on the list. Come on, people, wake up."
But the things that we need to look at, and truthfully, and in all sincerity, is that we have to stop talking and we have to get out and vote. We have to, again, stop talking, and we need to register on our 2020 census. We need to stand up and be counted. I'm very tired of the defendants of slaves being the unspoken majority.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm very tired of that. When
but
we
again,
don't stand
Vincent,
up.
part of the issue, the biggest part of the issue is that we have allowed, and this is again why it's so difficult, because we won't do the work. We won't kick Dwayne Warren off the ship. We won't kick a Raz Baraka off the ship. We won't kick a Cory Booker off the ship. We won't kick the people who support a Cory Booker off the ship. So you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I want you to think about this. So we're not willing to do this work. Cory Booker didn't support reparations, right? When he ran. Right? He said, I got to do something for everybody. Kamala Harris didn't say she supported reparations. Now, here comes the question, right? For foundational Black Americans, so as much as you want to be ADOS and you want to say, I'm dismissing these people, I'm moving them off the board. And my question is this: what are you doing to make sure that Kamala Harris doesn't become a senator again? Because we already know that she'll never vote for it. See, what are we doing to make sure? What are we doing to make sure that we cancel out Cory Booker, not just from the presidential debate, but so that he is not an anti-ADOS vote in the Senate? What are we doing to do that? And so, if we're not doing that work, then the
surprised me is that she became senator knowing that she withheld evidence, locking a black man up for over 25 years.
Hey, you know what? Say, we got work to do. It's difficult. Call or go.
Hey, I don't know, there might be a time delay, but I was just listening to you guys, and you guys were talking about, America and the things like how slow we are to roll and to make certain changes. And
it's on the
what
list.
popped into my head while you guys were talking was the theme to All in the Family. If you can remember that,
Edward Miller plays songs that make my head parade.
And you listen to the lyrics, we don't need a welfare state, right? All that they were saying, that's America. That's the America that they want. That's that Make America Great Again that Trump has talked about. And truth be told, it's I'm sorry, my brain is like,
that's all right.
Right? It's the same thing for the Democrats, right? It is definitely, it's what they want, right? They want a way that they can feel on top and that they don't need anybody for anything, right? That they're just the great America again, and that these are great Americans. And of course, that didn't include us, right? Because all of that time, bring back Mr. Hoover, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, that was like how they saw it, right? I don't know the complete solution. I just know that for us as black people, I really call back just to say it, black folks going to have to separate. If we don't separate our systems and things we need to do, we'll be having this conversation. It's the only thing that I believe we haven't truly tried yet.
Well, we have tried separation. We tried that with the Marcus Garvey regime and separating and moving back. We tried it with the Black Nationalist movement. And what we found is this. We have made very little success in the revolution, but we have made a great deal of accomplishments in the evolutionary process. And I mean evolution, I mean showing them black excellence has always been our key to achieving. Showing them black excellence and also showing black excellence in representation. Now, let's distinguish. Black excellence was shown by Louis Armstrong. Black excellence in representation was by Muhammad Ali. He said, I'm black and I'm proud. I'm black and I'm pretty. I'm the greatest and you can't beat me.
Hey, listen, check this out. I just got this. Did you know? See, I love doing this show.
Okay, here we go.
Did you know? Here's the headline. Audience, this is from last night's debate. Audience was full of rich people. $1,750 plus per ticket price for Democrat debate. Did you know that?
Last night?
last night debate, right?
Wow.
It says.
Are you telling me that? I thought the debates were free like that?
Well, I'm trying to read it. No, let me read it.
That's my political, naiveness. I didn't know. I thought that
let me read it.
Did debates that they opened that up to like first come, first serve, kind of like your name on the list. You're telling me they pay for that?
Let me read it.
Well, that means Bloomberg paid maybe 2-3 million for his cheering section.
Let me read it. It says, I think it speaks to the fundamental endemic corruption of the Democratic Party's establishment that you had to pay multiple thousands of dollars to get into that room. Unusually loud booing and jeering directed disproportionately to Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren during Tuesday night's Democratic presidential debate, particularly when the senators criticized billionaire businessman Mike Bloomberg, sparked probing questions about the class composition of the audience packed inside the. But see, we talked about that, right? How it was conspicuous how they were booing. It says journalists and other observers pointed to local reporting that February 6th on the Charleston County Democratic Party's offer. On the Charleston County Democratic Party's offer of $1,700 to $3,200 sponsorship packages that included tickets to the Charleston debate and other events. Most working people that I know don't spend $1,700 to get a ticket to a debate, Bernie Sanders said. This is something that the average person doesn't usually get to go to. So now we know. So now we know. And so now we know. And I want you guys to understand this too. See, so now you got to ask the question. You got to ask the question again. Why isn't anybody telling you this? So they all knew. They just like our local elected officials do. When they want to have an event, what do? They go and bust their supporters there to give you the impression that there were some outside people who showed up and it was a packed event. When in fact, they were employees or family members of employees, but the optics is what they're concerned about because they have nothing but contempt for you. They believe that you're so stupid that you'll see the crowd and you'll believe that everybody wants to support them. And so
you want to get on the bandwagon.
I told you before when we were doing the show, I said, hey, look, those people that were cheering, and I posted in the thread while we were talking to somebody, I said, look, Bloomberg spent $2,500 per person for I don't know how many thousands of people to cape for him on social media. So how much, and he's giving out these care packages. So he's doing whatever he needs to do to create these optics. So this is crazy. And then for me, you had CBS. And listen, I'm not done with. I saw this meme which I thought was hilarious. Upon Weinstein going to jail, they said that they call Oprah okra. They said okra and kale aren't doing too well. I said, okra and kale.
Wow.
But anyway, so Kale King, was a moderator. I don't trust her. I don't trust her at all. Right? She's proven who she is. She'll sell out black folks. She's done it. And so now you have her as a gatekeeper, as a moderator on this thing. And now, I want you to understand this too. They allowed the people to cheer. They allowed them to boo, right? In most debates, what they do, they say, we want a quiet audience. We want to get through the answers. We want to get through the whatever. But them being in collusion with the DNC, knowing that these people paid $1,700. Listen, if I paid $3,200 for a ticket, I want to be able to boo.
Hey, here's another thing. They got Oprah, and they got Gayle King. They got Gayle King, who was white friendly. Yet the other black anchor from ABC, Lindsay Davis, they got rid of her after she nailed Buttigieg.
Yeah. See, I'm telling you, man, it's a full court press right now. And so one of the things that I would ask people to look at is if you've got, before you want to move this guy, I'm talking about Bernie Sanders, off the board, got to look and say, I would just challenge you to ask this question. If every facet of the opposition is opposed to this guy, you got to ask why. All of them.
Because Because he's bringing about the change that's making them uncomfortable.
All of them.
He's
Like
bringing-
I'm telling you, everyone, they're throwing. Look, they threw the kitchen sink at him 6 months ago. They're ripping up flooring, throwing it at him now. They're throwing everything at him. Everything. And not only are they throwing everything at him, but this guy is withstanding all of it. And he's withstanding it all with the support of millions of people. He's not doing it with the support, 1 second caller. He's not doing it with the support of outside dark money people. He's doing it with the support. I was on the phone with some folks this morning. They said, Eric, I hope you talk about the debate. Please talk about the debate. People were texting me and saying, I sent them $2.70. I sent them $18. I sent them whatever. I'm sending AOC money because she's got 17 people running against her. These people are in a fight. They're in a fight.
Exactly.
Call it go.
These people are going at the rate of remember the 50s and 60s?
Yeah.
When we were young and organizing, we were stopping the system. That is the motivation and passion that these campaigns are running on.
Oh, man, they're fighting. Call it go.
Definitely. They are in for the fight. Yes.
Hey, good morning, guys. I just wanted to call and talk about the biggest culprit is the corporate media, who should have, at the beginning of that forum, should have full disclosure. The audience is paid. I mean, if they didn't do that, it's a full-out manipulation because the president of CBS said it when Donald Trump was running for office. Oh, he may not be good for the country, but he's good for business, and this is what they want to do. They want to be the puppeteers in this thing to make money. So when you, like Farrakhan said, want that businessman to address your issues, make sure you're not the slave or the poor person that fought to keep slavery alive, because this is what will end up happening. You will end up fighting the businessman's war and manipulate it into something against your own interest. That whole debate was against the American people's interest if the audience is paid and allowed to kid. One way or another.
Exactly.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
Carl, I agree with you. And what we're finding out is this. More and more, we are proving the Bible right. Where it says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. See, now people lie and say, no, it says the Bible says money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. Capitalism isn't the root of all evil. But the love of money, the simple fact that you are so much in love with money that you will do anything to make it rather than to make life right. That you are so interested in making money that you would sit up here and pollute the drinking water, causing permanent brain damage in Newark rather than making it right. See, that's where we have a problem. That's the part where socialism comes into play, where we say that, we have to do what's best for society as a whole, not for business and its billions.
That's right.
That's where socialism comes into play, where people organize and run your campaign and donate $5 and $10 dollars per person, rather than you spending hundreds and hundreds of your own millions. That is what we know between being what's true for society and what is true for business.
Look, this is a very nuanced. Look, chess is a very nuanced game, right? The most obvious move is not the move you need to make, right? So there's distractions. You'll see me push my queen up, and you'll see that I'm putting pressure on that rook. So you think, obviously, first look, I need to move my rook out of the way. But you don't realize that once you move your rook, you're going to uncover another piece. And that's really what I'm looking forward for you to do. So when we look at this board, when we look at it, we got to understand how all these pieces are being moved and what the purpose of them are for. We got to understand why Elizabeth Warren is still in the race, why Buttigieg is still in the race, why Amy Klobuchar is still in the race. We got to understand that. We got to understand why Fish Fry Clyburn is down there caping for Bloomberg and Biden.
Nope.
We got to understand that.
Yeah. Well, Clyburn is caping for Biden because Clyburn...
No, see, this is what I'm saying to you. He's caping for Biden right now, right?
Yep.
Because he needs to resuscitate Biden long enough to be able to continue to hammer away at Bernie. He doesn't think Biden's going to be president. Understand that. They don't believe that. The writing's already on the wall, but they're not ready to get rid of him yet. So they said, oh my God, they're looking right now. They say, we gotta have a good showing in South Carolina. I want you to understand, Bloomberg is trying to suck the oxygen out because he realizes that Biden is on a respirator. Clyburn is over there providing hospice for Biden. But he's looking at uncovering. So this is what I'm saying. So the chess move is this. He's looking. So that move is really uncovering Bloomberg. The move to support Biden is to uncover Bloomberg. We got to pay attention to the board.
Well, here's one of the biggest things is that Biden was part of one of the most successful presidential administrations we've had in our generation. Yet Bloomberg appears to be more Obama than Biden.
Well, because Obama knows. Obama knows that Biden ain't got a chance. Look, Biden don't even want to run for president. What did he say? He said, I'm asking for your support. I'm running for U.S. Senate. That's what he said. They said it was a gaffe. I said it wasn't a gaffe. He wants to run for Senate. He doesn't want to run for president. Crazy. Listen, did you hear the other gaffe last night that nobody on liberal media is talking about? When Bloomberg, I posted on my page because you got to only get it on Fox, but Bloomberg actually said that he spent all this money in these Democratic races and bought them. And then he corrected himself as the word bought was coming out of his mouth. You got to go check it out. I posted on my page.
Wow.
So you got to go check it out. Now, I'm not making this up. But see, so we talk about him buying people, and see, that's where he is. So sometimes you're so arrogant, sometimes you're so in yourself that you can't help yourself. So on that stage last night, when he was rattling off the amount of money that he was spending on campaigns, he said, I bought them. I bought them.
Yeah, he did.
There's no doubt about that. That's what I'm saying. So just acknowledge it, right? Acknowledge it, and then let's move on. So I don't want to debate the obvious that he bought them, that these people who are caping for him. What's that? I hear a bunch of background noise.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay. That he bought them, that they're caping for him, that they are disingenuous. Let's acknowledge that. I'm not even, I had some of these people trying to engage me on social media, right? I'm not even engaging you anymore because I understand who you are. Now go make your money. Now you better buy a car maybe. Depending upon how much Uncle Mike is paying you, you better buy something. You maybe pay a couple months of your mortgage and do some things. So I get that, right? But I'm not trusting what you're saying because I know who you are.
Well, here's another side to that coin, brother. Not only is he buying it, but look at how many people are waiting in line to compromise their morals to be bought.
Hey, listen.
Look at all these people who are waiting for millions of dollars from Bloomberg to give them that level of support for nothing, selling people down the road.
Yep. Oh man. That's right. So you've heard of the and somebody actually because I always knew about the house Negro and the field Negro, right? And somebody hit me to the garden Negro that I never knew about, right? They said, see, the garden Negro was the one who was closest to the house and could hear what was going on in the house, right? So the garden Negro always would report back to Massa what the house Negro was saying because the garden Negro wanted to be in the house. So what you see right now is the field Negroes are the ones that they're trying to herd to the polls. So you're nowhere near the house. You're just in the field and you're a commodity to everybody's wealth. They're just using you. But then so the battle really is between the garden Negro and the house Negro, right? So the house Negro's in the house. They're caping 100%. The garden Negro wants to get in the house, but doesn't really realize how abused the house Negro really is, right? So because the house Negro's not telling them. So the garden Negro, every chance he gets, when Master comes outside, he goes whispers in Master's ear what you're doing as a house Negro and why Master shouldn't trust you. So then when Master kicks you out, then he brings the garden Negro in. So there's this movement, right? And then you have other folks who are part of the field who want to get to the garden and then ultimately get to the house. So there's this backbiting, like you said, Vincent, this backbiting trying to be the one who's caping for Massa to undermine black folks. I mean, it's bananas to watch it happen. But anyway, I can't engage anymore with you all on social. We got a job to do. I think that the system is blowing up. When I listen everywhere except liberal media, everybody else is saying the Democratic Party is about to blow up.
And it needs to.
And it needs to. You know, they're just out of control. They're out of control, and it needs to blow up. And so anybody who's telling you that the party doesn't need to blow up, that you need to stay cool, play cool, I want you to remember what Malcolm said. He said, I'm not for anybody who tells me to hold on to my pain. But I am for anybody who is willing to fight for freedom. So I would ask you, when you look at your local level, you look at your state level, you look at the national level, who's fighting for freedom?
Correct. Who's fighting for change? Who's fighting for actual truth? And that's the whole thing. And we deal with a lot of people who are, they're just comfortable in their failures. Like the people who, okay, I ran for mayor of Pennsauken. Now, I got scandalized and took it to court. Now, when I got scandalized, a great deal of people dropped their support of me. In fact, my business even suffered from it. But yet, when I was found not guilty, do you think one of them would call back? And I'm not just talking about people who didn't know me and people on social media. I'm talking about family, friends, members in church. Why? Because they were afraid to admit that they were wrong. And that's the whole thing with America. Even on our local level and politicians, we have to admit that, we have elected people who are no good.
Right.
And once we admit that, then let's change and get them out of office.
Yeah.
Take it from our school board, our city council members, our mayors, our who enact policy in terms of social justice, harassing our children because they're driving and they're young and black. Let's look at our school system where, we got a great deal of teachers who aren't there to educate our children. They're just there to pick up a paycheck. Let's look at our congressmen who are in New Jersey, who are supposed to be responsible for bringing our federal dollars back to New Jersey. When they do that, they are able to alleviate some of the tax pressures that we have in our municipalities. They're able to alleviate the pressure that we have in repairing our roads and reducing taxes to our seniors and reducing the cost of these colleges in New Jersey. Yet, New Jersey is number 50 in terms of bringing money back. That has to change. We have been electing people and voting against our own interests. It's time that we admit that we did that and stop. It's time that we stop playing field in and house in, and let's just play together to bring about these changes for us.
Well, look, like I said, I'm looking at these numbers. They have never been better, right? Now, whether or not we're able to pull it off, I don't know. But they've never been better. This firewall that consistently holds up in South Carolina with older black folks just abandoning their interests and voting for the Democratic Party, they're not doing it now. You've got people who are pulling away from the Democratic Party. I've read several articles and I've looked at lots of data that says that people are pulling away. That they realize. See, the idea. Let's be very, very clear about how campaigns, how elections are run. Right? They're run through promotional propaganda kind of techniques. Right? So they start off by telling you, and this is just marketing 101. Right? Identify your point of pain, or or help you create or create a point of pain for you, right? So you have a problem. Like you might not have even thought you had a problem, but now they tell you enough times you got a problem. Now you got a problem, and then they tell you that they have a prescription for your problem, right? So they kept telling you have a problem, you have a problem, you have a problem. That problem was what? Donald Trump, right? Right? They kept telling you that. Here you got a problem, you got a problem, you got a problem. So I want you guys to follow me very carefully because again, this is marketing, advertising 101. You have a problem. No, I don't. Yeah, you do. No, I don't. Yeah, you do. You got a problem. They say it enough times, you now start to say you have a problem. Then they say to you, here's your prescription for your problem, right? And now the problem you didn't even think you had before, which you don't have because it's not him, it's the system. But they're not telling you it's the system that's the problem because they're part of the system. So what they tell you is this symptom that you're experiencing is the problem, and it's not. So when they tell you that it's Donald Trump, then they say, we have the prescription. So the people who've caused it tell you they have a prescription.
Are the savior of it.
Right. So they create a problem, then they tell you we have the prescription for the problem.
Correct.
Right. So,
Donald Trump's whole entire campaign was based upon the lie that America was in poor shape, the economy was atrocious, and we're going to have this huge migration of foreigners coming in from Mexico into the United States. And the only one who could fix that problem was Donald Trump.
Right. So
now, this is what everybody started to realize. The economy has been great. Under the Obama administration, the economy has been making more record highs than any administration because under the Bush administration, the economy was in the toilet. Gas prices are moderate. Remember when gas prices was hitting $4?
Well, I wouldn't say listen. The economy is great for some people.
Yeah, it was.
See, we gotta say that the economy. Listen, I could drive you through some neighborhoods, man. The economy's not great for everybody.
No, it's not.
There we go.
But no, not for certain individuals. But as a whole, in terms of the nation, it has improved. Now, let's look at a few other things and a few other lies under the Trump administration. Remember that big group of people who were coming into the United States through Mexico? Once he got elected, we never heard about them anymore. Again, we have to stop falling for the shrewd marketing campaign of these politicians, and let's look at what's real. What's real is this. We know that Russia is interested in the campaign through the CIA. So what does our president do? He doesn't go and denounce Russia or do anything to get them to not interfere in our election. He fires the director of the CIA. Let's look at the truth. We're talking about that, his big campaign is that we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. Mexico to this day has still not sent us a dime. Let's look at some truth in policy. Okay? The only thing he has done is increase the wealth of his 5% buddies.
Right. But what I'm saying to you again is this. We already know this. So why are we debating? It's not look, he hasn't done the things that he said. Why are we debating it? Why are we debating? Right. We need to be moving beyond the things that are obvious, that we know, right? And move on to the other things. So I'm looking at
Oh, by the way, Eric, you're absolutely right. If the Democratic Party was the party of black people, would we have to be out in the street talking about Black Lives Matter? Or would we be going on saying that, you know what, we need to close the gap in terms of black wealth?
Listen, I read the piece to you the other day where I said to you that Dr. King, back in 1952, declared himself a democratic socialist. He challenged the capitalistic economic theory and said, I don't understand how we can have 40 million poor people and you telling me that this theory works. So I'm challenging it. And because I think he was a pretty brilliant guy, he said, so I think that democratic socialism is something that we need to be pushing toward, right? So that's what he said. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm looking and saying, and then for all of the people who were against him, because remember, he stood alone. They abandoned him. So some of these same moderates, because they were moderates, they were not progressives. They didn't take risks. They abandoned him. And so now some of those same people, right, or relatives or descendants of those same people are telling us still, hold the line. But in holding the line, we've done worse over the last 50 years than we did when he was struggling for this. So how do you claim any victories? We haven't had any successes. We've had all failures. That's fact.
True.
So now when you say to me, hold the line again, until when? So give me a timeline now. Give me a timeline. How long?
Until you get tired of asking.
That's right. Or until you die.
Or until you die.
Or until you die.
Same thing
So
that they're
listen.
doing to the.
Go ahead.
The same thing that they're doing to the Vietnam veterans.
Right. So listen.
You know, first they had to debate to see if they had the disease. Then they had to wait to make administration to cover medical care for the disease. And now, since most of them are dead, they don't have to pay out.
Right. So I'm looking, there's a headline, progressive groups in New Jersey don't want an open primary just for the president. So I think that Senator Menendez opened up a can of worms, right? By trying to rig the system, right? Openly rig the system, right? So he told us that there's a system that they have called Line A all the way, right? This bracketed voting where they pull each other together and they drag the dredge of the party along with the more popular people to get everybody elected so that they could cape for one another and continue to work against your interests. So he said now, because it is obvious that Bernie Sanders has a national lead, right? He said, we don't want to be tied to that, right? So because we don't want to be a part of bringing more people out to vote and voting and going across and then having to choose. Having to show some cojones. We don't want to do that.
No, we don't want people to think for themselves. We want them to pick who we want. See, bracketed voting is basically getting everybody on line with their ideology.
No, but what I'm saying is this, but in order to have bracketed voting for the primary, right, they have to pick a top of the ticket. They have to make a choice. Right,
correct.
So they're looking at the Democrat presidential primary candidates, and they're saying we don't want to show any leadership right now. We don't want to show any leadership right now, right?
No. We don't want to acknowledge who's truly the leader. That's what the whole thing is about. And keep in mind, you also have to look at that affects what I'm running for too, in United States Senator. You know, with bracketed voting, that gives a whole line item to the incumbent senator, Cory Booker.
Yeah.
And it works in his favor. So he opened up a can of worms, and he's going up against a group of people who are willing to fight him to the end on it.
Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna take these commercial breaks real quick, and then when I come back, we're going to close out with some very interesting stuff. We'll be right back, guys.
Do you have loss prevention or safety concerns? Black Belt Security and Investigations has armed and unarmed guards that can protect what is important to you. For security you can count on, visit www.bbsillc.com. or call 1-800-493-1859 today.
It's time to turn up the heat in your house or apartment. So here are some fire safety tips from Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency to keep you warm and safe this winter. Don't overload your electrical outlets. Keep flammable items away from fireplaces and space heaters. And put a fresh battery in your smoke detector. Turn to Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency for your home and renter's insurance, or bundle it with your auto insurance and save. Call 908-686-4609 or visit dlminsurance.com today.
BBSI. BBSI. BBSILLC.com.
There's only one way to be independent. There's only one way to be free. It's not something that someone gives to you. It's something that you take. Nobody can give you independence. Nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. If you can't take it, you don't deserve it. Nobody can give it to you. I'm for anybody who's for freedom. I'm for anybody who's for justice. I'm for anybody who's for equality. I'm not for anybody who tells me to sit around and wait for mine.
You just asked me how do I keep this up, man. It's challenging. Listen, there's I want the progressive folks to continue to push back. I think that you should really pay attention to the signs that are out here. Listen, the Democratic Party is changing the rules every single day. It's like and we talked about this, 3-card Monte or the shell game, right? The rules work until they don't work for them. The rules work until they don't work for them. And they're always, and we talked about it on this show, we call it the mousetrap, right? That they'll continue to change the mousetrap. So as soon as they see that we're figuring it out, they'll change it. So so now we figured it out. Progressives are on the move here in New Jersey. They realized that we figured it out. So now they want to change the mousetrap. They realized that through the numbers that were coming through on the presidential side, that we figured things out. So what did they do? They changed the mousetrap. They allowed this guy to buy into the DNC. They allowed him to be on the debate stage. And then what did they do? They perpetrated another fraud by allowing people to pay $1,700 to $3,200 a ticket to be at last night's debate, because they realized that when Bloomberg was on a stage and he didn't have paid cronies in the audience, that he failed miserably, right? They realized when you had moderators who were halfway honest and decent, that he failed miserably. But then they put Gayle King in front of him this time, right? The woman who's caped the most for the corporation white supremacy at the detriment of black people. Then they stacked the audience with all these people to give the millions and millions of people who watched the debate the perception that people were supporting Bloomberg. But we got to keep pushing back, got to push back against it all, and I think that we'll get it done. Call or go.
Hey, I was just looking at I see your guy Jeff Clyburn just endorsed Joe Biden. Yes.
No, that's what we said earlier. We're not.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you guys had mentioned it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you look at the actual campaign, Joe Biden's campaign right now is on life support. So with Joe Biden also goes I guess, some of the greatest aspects of the Obama administration. And his campaign is on life support because you got Bloomberg, who has been campaigning more Obama than Biden has ever done. And you also are looking at, if he doesn't make it in the South, then it's over for the actual Biden administration and his run for office.
So do you think this endorsement will push him over the top, at least for South Carolina?
No, I don't. Well, you know what? He's
see, the thing is this: Clyburn is a very influential guy. I mean, in terms of influencer, his endorsement goes a long way.
It'll help, right? It'll help. So it depends on, what I would say, Farrakhan. It's like if he needed a head start, right? So you know how if you like when you were in grade school and you're in a race in the playground at lunchtime, and you know that guy is faster than you, so you say, hey, give me a head start, right? And then you try to, based on that head start, let that propel you to victory. So I would say that Bernie has the momentum, right? Coming out of Iowa, coming out of New Hampshire, coming out of Nevada. He's got the momentum, so he's gaining. So what Biden needed was a push, right? Because that gap between the two of them was closing. So the question you're asking is whether that push is going to be enough given the momentum that Bernie Sanders has. I can't tell you who's going to win. I can tell you that Clyburn did give him a push. How much of a push? I don't know. But I still say that the play is to just keep Biden in the race until Super Tuesday, to allow Bloomberg to capitalize on all of the money that he spent in those early in the Super Tuesday states, right? Because understand this for certain: if Bernie Sanders wins South Carolina, Super Tuesday falls. It falls. It's like it'll be like dominoes, just falling for Bernie Sanders. So they said, look, we have to do whatever we can. So even though you have all these other black folks caping for Bloomberg, right? Because they need to boost Bloomberg up for Super Tuesday, right? In South Carolina, they said to Clyburn, now you got to figure out who they are, right? I say it's the corporation white supremacy. Said to Clyburn, you got to go buck dance for him. We gonna get these other black folks to buck dance over here. You got to buck dance over here. And that's all part of the maximum sophisticated confusion that I'm talking about. That while we're watching all of the buck dancing Negroes all over the place, and black folks are holding their heads going, what's going on?
Get a few churches in there and sing some spirituals for them.
Yes. Oh, it's crazy, man. What's happening is bananas. I just saw breaking news that in New York you have Dinkins who came out to support.
For Bloomberg last night.
That's what I'm saying. So I want you to understand.
Wow.
They got black. Dude, look, we are.
Can we just say black people are like drunk or confused or something?
No, we're not drunk or confused. No, it's not drunk or confused.
No.
Not, see, they are now being told. See, it's all coming out. See, they were in the closet. They were closet house Negroes. They were closet Negro whisperers. They were closet slave catchers. They were like the Ku Klux Klan with the hood on. You didn't know who they were, right? They were creating terrorism in our community, but when they took the hood off and they put the tie on, you didn't know that white person was out there putting a cross on your lawn the night before. But the corporation white supremacy said, I want to tear it all down. Read the letters of Willie Lynch, right? He said, see, they want to create absolute distrust within the black community now. They want to say Negroes don't know who to trust. You can't trust none of them, because at the end of the day, what do we know? We love money, and we'll do anything for money. And as soon as, understand this, you break up the solidarity within any black community, once you realize that they got more money out there than we have in here, and all they got to do is start spreading their money, and then everybody gonna turn on their mother and their sister. Now, when that happens, now guess what, Farrakhan? I can't sit down and tell you my secrets. I can't tell you the plot and plan I have to get off the plantation. Why? Because I now have eyewitness to the fact that all somebody got to do is bring enough money, and Farrakhan might tell my plan. So so what they're doing right now is they are destroying whatever might be a part of. I'm losing my microphone because I'm getting so excited right now. But they're destroying the very foundation right now. See, because they understood. So when Kevin and I say that the corporation white supremacy was caught off guard, what they were caught off guard about is that we were communicating with one another. That we were finally coming together. See, me, you, Vincent, other people who are listening to the show, us connecting now with the Montclair Underground. All of this was coming together. And they said, we need to sow dissension. We need to create distrust. We need to create distrust. So when you look, and you're not on Facebook right now, Farrakhan, but if you look, you'll see some people on there now who are posting Mike Bloomberg stuff up. And it'll make you scratch your head and go, wait a minute, him? Her? Are you kidding me?
I've had people in here. I have people in the shop, man, and they tell me, "Yo, I'm going Bloomberg." I'm like, "What?"
But that's my point.
Where you get that from? But when you ask them,
but there's my point to you. But
they don't have any basis to it.
But Farrakhan, here's my point to you, right? So Bloomberg didn't get to them. You know who got to them? A Negro whisperer. I want you to understand that. It wasn't Bloomberg that got to them. It was that close dude or young lady that you know who was caping all the time. Undercover. They were undercover caper. Now they're exposing them. And see, and the corporation white supremacy is smart because what they do, they say, you know what? The way you control them is you bring them right out in public. And then you castrate them to show everybody the level of control you have. So that's when we're looking going, you? Really? They got you? Oh, no, not you. Yo, man, I thought you'd be the last person. See, so once they get us to that point, Farrakhan, it's done.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a slave technique called breaking the buck. You know, you get the buck that's influential from everybody, and everybody's listening to him, and he starts to raise up. So what they do is that they get one of those little crazy white cousins, they tie him to a post, and he's sodomized. Not only is he sodomized, but he has to walk around with his pants sagging down. That's one of the big reasons I get on kids about sagging their pants. They don't know truly what that comes from. And in our society, the exact same thing. We get all these people in here who are influential, and they compromise, sell their moral integrities to the Bloomberg dollars.
But that's why we have to, when we see people and see, so I'm going to go back and say to you, and I know Farrakhan felt a way about, and I'm not sure what transpired with Snoop Dogg. That Snoop Dogg, they said he cried when he was doing the Red Table conversation with Jada Pinkett, and Snoop Dogg came out and apologized for what he did. But this is why when there's ever an attack from inside, from black folk, we have to be we have to be very precise about how we come at them, because we got to understand the damage that's being done. So, because look, we're fragile. We're fragile. The conditioning is deep, and we're fragile. And it doesn't take much. Look, I'll say this: if you got a person who's an alcoholic, they'll tell you to recover, you have to change people, places, and things. Why? Because you're fragile. And that's why even an alcoholic who's been, who hasn't had a drink for 5 years, what do they still say? They say, I'm an alcoholic. They still say it. They still acknowledge. They say, I'm an alcoholic, been clean for 10 years. But they understand their fragile state. And they understand the moment that they deny being an alcoholic is their first step back to taking a drink. So we are fragile like that. And that's why I wear my hat, because I understand. This is like, what was that movie? I forgot, Mel Gibson, where they said to protect themselves, they had to put a aluminum cone on their heads, right? To keep from being, right. This is my guard. Just like the Jews, they have the yarmulke, right? It's to protect the crown, right? This is my guard, because I understand. And so I have this on, and it reminds me, it keeps me grounded, because I understand how fragile it is. We have been conditioned. It was a science.
It was.
A science. And we got to be about the business of breaking it every day. So when I wake up in the morning, I look in the mirror and I say, I am foundational black American. I am an American descendant of slavery. Just like an alcoholic stands up and says, hi, my name is such and such, I'm an alcoholic. We have to do this. We have to wake up and say, hi. Or when we have to say, hi, my name is such and such, I am an American descendant of slavery. There has to be constant reminders, because we understand that the system, you see it.
When don't make that change ourselves. We can't sit up here and blame everybody else for our failed conditions when we don't vote people who have our best interests in mind. Or we can't continue to vote in the same people and not hold them accountable to their election promises. We need change, and we need to stop debating about it, talking about it, and get out there and doing something about it. If doing something about it means that you call some people and tell them what you found out about this candidate and why they're good because they're carrying our agenda, then doing it. If doing something about it means that you will take a flyer of a person who you believe has our best interest and is carrying and changing our agenda and knocking on doors and giving them exposure, then doing it. Even posting some things about them on Facebook and supporting them, or dropping $20 off in their campaign box. Do something to change. Don't just sit there and moan and groan and become a Negro whisperer and say, oh, well, slavery wasn't all that bad. Master didn't beat us that hard. Come on.
Yeah.
Get out and do something.
Yeah. So
And
go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
No, what I was going to say is what we said earlier. It doesn't matter if it's, you see, here's the thing. None of these candidates are actually supporting the $15 minimum wage nationally.
Right.
Why? Because the greatest benefactor of that is who?
The benefactor, big corporation. Absolutely.
Exactly. So why would we vote for someone who's not voting for our best interest? You know, a lot of them aren't out there campaigning in terms of New Jersey Senate. And there are like 6 running for the New Jersey Senate, Republican and Democrat. But a lot of them out there aren't supporting, bringing back money, federal money home. Why?
But look, but we're clear about who they are. Again, we're clear about how they got there. And if you're not clear about it, I don't have time to explain it to you now. Go back 4 years of listening to the show, right? None of those people are there because they have our interests at heart. They were not, their campaigns were not funded by us. Their campaigns were funded by big corporations. They have lobbyists who work on their staff who are crafting policy that benefits them, not us.
Right.
And if you
and what did we get for that?
And at this point, and I'm saying to you, anybody who is aligned with them, anybody who is taking pictures with them, anybody who is doing that stuff, they do not have your best interest at heart. And I'm asking, are they anti-black? I'm asking, you got to ask the question, are you anti-black? How can you look at the condition of black people and constantly work against black people, but you're not anti-black? How can you continue to support policies that put us in the worst situations, but you say you're not anti-black? See, we got to start asking that question. And I'm not just talking about non-black people being anti-black. I'm talking about black people being anti-black. I can't hear what you're saying for what you're doing. So don't tell me you love me, but you're beating the shit out of me.
Amen. Amen to that.
See?
And that's the change that we need.
That is the change that we need.
That is the change that we need.
So listen, I want to thank you guys for staying with us. I know, Vincent, I told you before, I got to take my computer to the Apple store, man. It just, like, literally, I got 100%. It just shuts down on me, man. I guess Apples don't get viruses, but I'm not sure what the issue is. I'm trying to make it before the weekend because these shows are important. The content that we talk about is important. Look, one last thing I want to post because somebody sent it to me, and I didn't realize this. There is Amazon is opening up a cashier-free store. Did you see that?
Yeah. Amazon does own Whole Foods.
No, but I'm saying that what they're doing is they're saying we're completely going
cashier free. Yeah. You pick up the items, it automatically registers, and you pick up the items and you walk out the door.
But what did I say to you guys? I said 800 million jobs are going to be offloaded. 800 million in the next 9 years. are going to be awful. I mean, it was very interesting because about 6-7 months ago, when I was talking about this, there was actually somebody who follows me on social media who said, "Oh, we need to boycott the the self-serve lines in at ShopRite because they need to bring bagging people back to make money." I said, "Oh my God, are you really rolling back time like that? I mean, what are we like seriously? What are we talking about?" So we should get back to cars with carburetors, right? I mean, stop it. So the idea is things are moving forward, right? I threw my typewriter away a long time ago. We have to, and so, but when you have people like that, Vincent, who say, you know what, we have failed to elect politicians who have the acumen to put in place policies that address, from an economic and political power agenda, things that work for us, right? And I always say, you know what, we need to have a urban economic development plan. That's what we need, urban economic development plan. But none of them know how to do that. But we don't require it, right? When I say, hey, listen, this person's running for office, what are their qualifications? Then you get the Negro whisperers and the slave catchers, and you get all the people who want to participate in maximum sophisticated confusion come on and say, oh, they're qualified. Just like we had the guy from Hillside, right? Whose son is now on the Board of Education. Oh, he's qualified. Well, what does that mean? Qualification simply means that you're a resident in that town and you're the requisite age, which is 18 years old, right? That is it. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying and those really to me are not qualifications. Those are what do you call them? I can't remember the term. But to me, a qualification is not that. That is the if I were to say what permits me to be able to run, and I'm sorry for the lack of the word, it's not at the tip of my tongue right now, but qualification should be something else. What qualifies you? What says that you can advance any meaningful agenda, right? So when you go to get a job and somebody says, well, are you qualified to do the job? You're not saying, well, I'm breathing, right? I'm walking. No, it's saying, here's the objective, here are the objectives, here are the goals, here are the things we're trying to accomplish here. Can you do those things? See, that's what qualification is. And so when we're not holding people to standards, when we're not making sure that they are qualified, then what we wind up with are people who come out of our failed institutions, our educational institutions and other places, right? The workforce development programs and everything, and they can't get jobs. And so then we start fighting against technology, right? And we say, oh no, don't advance technology. Why? Because we're not prepared. Why? Because we elected the dude that we knew in the neighborhood.
Who was qualified, who led us into working on the typewriter rather than us studying algorithms.
Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So now, here it is, right? So we talked about on this show the robots that you now see doing janitorial jobs in Walmart. We talked about the robots. You know, I asked somebody in Stop and Shop the other day, Vincent, a robot came through and something had spilled. And so this woman came to go clean it up. And I said, how'd you know to clean it up? She said, well, the robot reports it in, and I have a thing in my ear, and it tells me. So I said, so who works for who? I said, who works for who? I said, so the robot called you and told you to bring yourself over here and clean this up.
So the puppet master has now become the puppet.
There we go. So, and it's happening right in front of us, and we don't even see it. Right? Because these Negro whisperers don't want us to see it because they don't have a plan for it. They don't have a plan for it. They never thought about it. They had jobs, right, holding these political seats to cape for the corporation white supremacy, keeping you the commodity and wealth of the power of corporation white supremacy. And now here we are at critical mass where all these jobs are going to be offloaded and they don't know what to do. And so that's why I was with Yang, because Yang said, listen, there's no recovering from this. The tsunami is here. You need universal basic income to stay afloat. Without it, you won't.
That's right.
See, that's a radical, progressive thing that needs to happen. So, again, Bernie Sanders is not for that, but it doesn't make me kick Bernie Sanders off the island. See, Bernie Sanders didn't say that he was for universal basic income. He didn't say that he was for reparations, but there's some other things that he's for. So I can come to the table once we tear the system down and say, hey, Bernie, we got to have universal basic income. Hey, Bernie, we got to have reparations. You see, and then I bring a contingent of ADOS to the table to say, yo, you go out there at that podium, right, and you fight for reparations. You're not going to fight alone. We're going to be with you. I think, right? Will we be? If he did it? Or won't we be?
Let's hope that we are there. I hope that if this does get to the floor, that we are there to stand up and be accountable and to let our voices be heard. That is one of the biggest problems that we have with blacks in politics. We do not let our voice be heard.
Right.
Now, when we get somebody to fight for us and they need us to have their back, we disappear. See, and that part needs to change. We need to, once again, support these people that we have elected in there. Support these people who are pushing our agenda. Support them, and for those who aren't, we need to hold them accountable to us, to their promise that we elected them. And there's another campaign coming up in a very short time. That's one of the things that we need to do. Make our vote count. Make our voices be heard. Now, do we need a change in income? Yes, we do. But not only do we need the income to be raised to a minimum wage of $15 per hour, but also we need a policy in place that we get a cost of living increase. We keep changing the minimum wage and leaving it flat. Yeah. Then 10 to 15 years later, we're debating it again. Yeah. We can stop all of that right now by saying, you know what, let's set it at $15 an hour. And let's put a percentage wage increase every year automatically. Right. You know, so as the cost of living goes up, or whatever the case may be, their income can match it, so that we can stop this endless cycle of debating and stop having working poor and start improving the quality of life for our employees. We need to, once again, change our educational system. America is consistently dropping because we're going through the failed ideology of this. We rely on standardized testing. Why do we rely on it? Because nobody is teaching the school agenda or curriculum. They're teaching them how to take the test.
And we're going to hold that until tomorrow. We're at 12 o'clock. Guys, I want to thank you all for tuning in.
Guess what? I'm on a roll.
Hey, listen. Call in tomorrow, brother. We'll keep it going. I want to talk about curriculum, too. And I want to talk about, we'll save it for tomorrow. Make sure you hit the share button. Vincent, thanks for tuning in.
Hey, thank you for having me. God bless you and your campaign. Remember to vote for me this June in the primaries. I'm running against incumbent Cory Booker. We together can make some positive changes in our society, in our state, in our nation. Thank you all, and God bless you.